Slow down for a moment, child of God. You're safe here. If your heart feels heavy, if your mind has been running all day, if you clicked this video because you just needed a quiet place to breathe, I'm really glad you're here tonight. You don't have to pretend right now. You don't have to be strong for anyone. You don't have to hold everything together. Not in this moment. Not in this space. Tonight I want to sit with you. Gently. Quietly. Like a soft light in a dark room. Like a friend who doesn't rush you. Doesn't judge you. Doesn't ask you to be anything other than honest. Because I know something about nights like this. Nights when your chest feels tight. Nights when your thoughts won't settle. Nights when you're tired in a way sleep doesn't fix. And I want to take you into a theme that has held countless people together when they felt like they were falling apart. A theme that has carried believers through storms, wars, heartbreaks, and long silent seasons. When you feel like you're about to collapse, God Himself holds you up. This isn't just a comforting idea. It's a truth woven through Scripture. A truth proven in real lives. A truth that has carried people through the darkest valleys and brought them out standing again. So take a slow breath. Let your shoulders drop. Let your heartbeat settle. Let the noise inside you soften. Because what you're about to hear is not pressure. Not instruction. Not a demand to be better. It's a reminder, a whisper, a hand on your back saying, you're not alone, you're not forgotten, you're not falling apart, you're being held. Think of Elijah, the prophet who stood strong on Mount Carmel, who called down fire from heaven, who watched God move in power, and then collapsed under the weight of fear and exhaustion. He ran into the wilderness. He lay under a broom tree, and he said the words many of us have whispered in our own ways. I can't do this anymore. But God didn't scold him, didn't shame him, didn't tell him to try harder. God sent an angel with food, with water, with rest, with gentleness. Get up and eat, the angel said, for the journey is too much for you. Not, you're too weak. Not, you should be stronger. But the journey is too much. God acknowledged the weight. God acknowledged the exhaustion. God acknowledged the humanity. And then God carried him. And in American history, there was a man who lived through a night like that. A man whose faith was tested not on a mountaintop, but in the quiet, painful collapse of everything he thought his life would be. His name was Jonathan Edwards, one of the most influential voices of the Great Awakening. People know him for his sermons, his theology, his impact. But what many forget is the night he was pushed out of his own church. misunderstood, rejected, hurt by the very people he had served for decades. He walked away with his family, not knowing what would come next, not knowing how he would provide, not knowing why God allowed it. It was his broom tree moment, his wilderness, his "Lord, I don't understand" season. But in that quiet, painful place, God didn't abandon him. God didn't waste the darkness. God didn't let the story end there. In that season of loss, Jonathan Edwards wrote some of the most profound works of his life, works that shaped American faith for generations, works that still speak today. Later he said that what felt like the end became one of the sweetest gifts of God's grace. Not because it was easy, not because it didn't hurt, but because God was closer in the breaking than in the success. Just like Elijah, just like countless believers across history, just like you, you are not failing. You are not falling apart. You are being held by the same God who met Elijah under the tree, who met Jonathan Edwards in his exile, who meets you tonight in your quiet room with your tired heart and your unspoken prayers. So stay here with me. Let the night be gentle. Let the word breathe life back into you. Let God remind you that He is near. Not when you feel strong, but when you feel like you're slipping. Because the place where you think you're breaking is often the place where God is building you again. Stay here a little longer. Let the quiet wrap around you like a blanket. Let this moment be a place where you don't have to rush. Don't have to fix anything. Don't have to pretend you're okay when you're not. Because the truth is, God meets people in the slow moments, in the tired moments, in the "I don't know what to do next" moments, and He meets you there too. When Elijah lay under that tree, he wasn't praying powerful prayers. He wasn't declaring victory. He wasn't performing miracles. He was simply exhausted. And God still came close. And maybe that's where you are tonight. Not broken. Not faithless. Just tired. Tired in a way you can't explain to anyone else. Tired in a way that makes you wonder if something is wrong with you. But nothing is wrong with you. You're human. And God understands humanity better than anyone. Jesus Himself knew what it felt like to be weary, to be pressed on every side, to feel the weight of expectations, to carry more than anyone could see. And because He walked through that, He knows how to walk with you through this. There's another story I want to bring you into tonight. A story from American history that mirrors this same gentle truth. During the Civil War, there was a pastor named Phillips Brooks, a man who carried the grief of an entire nation on his shoulders. He preached funerals for young soldiers. He comforted families who had lost everything. He watched his country tear itself apart. And one night, after months of emotional exhaustion, he wrote in his journal that he felt empty, as if every prayer had dried up. But instead of abandoning him, God met him in that emptiness, not with thunder, not with fire, but with a quiet, steady presence. Out of that season of heaviness, Phillips Brooks wrote words that would circle the world. O little town of Bethlehem, how still we see thee lie, a song born not from strength, but from stillness, not from certainty, but from quiet trust, not from joy, but from a weary heart learning to rest again. And maybe that's what God is doing in you tonight. Not demanding strength, not asking for perfection, just inviting you to rest long enough for Him to breathe something new into you. So stay here. Let the night be slow. Let your heart unclench. Let God hold the pieces you've been gripping so tightly. You don't have to rise yet. You don't have to figure out tomorrow. You don't have to be back to normal. You just have to breathe and let God be near. Stay with me, just for a little while longer. The night is quiet. Your room is still. And your heart, even if it feels messy or loud, is allowed to rest here. You don't have to rush healing. You don't have to get over it. You don't have to pretend you're stronger than you feel. God never asked you to carry what only His hands can hold. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do is simply stop running. Stop fighting yourself. Stop forcing your heart to move faster than it's ready to go. Because God does some of His deepest work in the slow places, in the quiet places, in the places where you finally whisper, Lord, I can't do this alone. And He answers, I never wanted you to. Think about the disciples on the stormy sea. They were experienced fishermen. They knew how to handle waves. They knew how to navigate danger. But that night, the storm was bigger than their strength. They panicked. They cried out. They thought they were going to die. And Jesus, the one who had been sleeping through the chaos, stood up, looked at the wind, and said, Peace, be still. And the storm obeyed, not because the disciples were calm, not because they had strong faith, not because they handled everything perfectly, but because Jesus was in the boat, and He's in yours too, even when you don't feel Him, even when the waves look bigger than your hope, even when your prayers feel small and shaky. There's a story from American history that echoes this same truth. A story about a woman named Harriet Beecher Stowe. The author of Uncle Tom's Cabin, a woman whose writing shook the conscience of a nation. People remember her impact. They remember the movement her book ignited. They remember how President Lincoln greeted her by saying, "So you're the little woman who wrote the book that started this great war." But what people forget is the storm she lived through while writing it. Harriet Beecher Stowe was grieving the death of her young son. Her heart was shattered. Her home was filled with sorrow. She felt the weight of injustice in her country, and the weight of grief in her own soul. She once wrote that she felt broken open, as if her heart had been torn wide enough for God to pour something through it that she could never have carried on her own. And in that brokenness, God gave her words, words that awakened a nation, words that changed history, words that came not from strength, but from a storm. Her grief did not disqualify her. Her tears did not silence her calling. Her weakness did not push God away. Instead, God stepped into her storm and spoke through her life in a way she never expected. Just like Jesus in the boat, just like God with Elijah, just like the gentle presence that met Phillips Brooks in his exhaustion, and just like the presence that meets you tonight. Maybe your storm isn't visible to anyone else. Maybe you've been carrying it quietly, hoping it would pass, hoping no one would notice how tired you are. But God notices. God sees the waves you're facing. God sees the nights you can't sleep. God sees the prayers you whisper into your pillow. God sees the strength it takes just to keep going. And He is not disappointed in you. He is not frustrated with you. He is not waiting for you to get it together. He is stepping into your storm with the same authority, the same compassion, the same steady presence that calmed the sea. Sometimes He calms the storm around you. Sometimes He calms the storm inside you. And sometimes He simply holds you until the storm passes. You don't have to be fearless. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to pretend the waves don't scare you. You just have to stay in the boat with Him, because He's not going anywhere. So breathe. Let the night be gentle. Let your heart soften. Let God sit with you in the places you've been trying to handle alone. You are not sinking. You are not forgotten. You are not too much for God. You are held. You are seen. You are loved in ways deeper than you understand. And this storm, as loud as it feels, will not have the final word. God will. Stay here with me a little longer. The night isn't rushing you. God isn't rushing you. And you don't have to rush yourself. Sometimes healing happens slowly, quietly, almost invisibly. like a seed under the soil, doing its deepest growing in the dark, where no one can see it. Maybe that's where you are tonight, buried, hidden, uncertain, wondering if anything good could possibly come from this season. But seeds don't grow in sunlight. They grow in darkness first. And so do you. There's a moment in Scripture that captures this so beautifully. A moment when Jesus said something that didn't sound comforting at first, but held a truth that has carried believers for centuries. Unless a grain of wheat falls into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But if it dies, it bears much fruit. He wasn't talking about destruction. He was talking about transformation, about the kind of change that only happens when something old breaks open, so something new can live. And maybe that's what this season is for you. Not an ending, not a failure, not a collapse, but a breaking open, so God can grow something deeper, something stronger, something more beautiful than what you had before. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a powerful way. A story about Fanny Crosby, one of the most prolific hymn writers in history. She wrote over 8,000 hymns, songs that have comforted millions, songs still sung in churches today. But what many people forget is that Fanny Crosby was blind. She lost her sight as a baby because of a medical mistake. Her entire life was shaped by a darkness she never asked for and could not escape. And yet, she once said something astonishing. If I had a choice, I would still choose to be blind, because when I get to heaven, the first face I will ever see will be the face of Jesus. Her darkness didn't destroy her faith. It deepened it. It didn't silence her voice. It amplified it. It didn't limit her calling. It shaped it. Out of that darkness came hymns like Blessed Assurance, Safe in the Arms of Jesus, and Draw Me Nearer, songs born from a life that learned to see God, not with eyes, but with trust. And maybe that's what God is doing in you, not punishing you, not abandoning you, but teaching you to see Him in a deeper way than you ever have before. Maybe the darkness you're walking through is not the end of your story, but the soil where God is planting something sacred. So breathe. Let the night be gentle. Let your heart rest from trying to understand everything. You don't have to figure out the purpose of your pain tonight. You don't have to make sense of the season you're in. You just have to stay close. Stay open. Stay held. Because God is not done with you. Not even close. And the parts of your life that feel buried right now may be the very parts where God is preparing the greatest growth. When the time is right, the seed breaks open, the soil shifts, the first fragile green shoots appear, and what once looked like loss becomes life. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not stuck. You are growing in ways you cannot yet see. And God, the one who never wastes a season, is closer than your breath and kinder than your fears. Stay close for a little while longer. The night is deep. The world is quiet. And this moment, this soft, breathing moment, is a place where God can speak to you in ways the daytime noise never allows. You don't have to be strong right now. You don't have to be impressive. You don't have to have answers. You just have to be here, present, breathing, open, because God does some of His most tender work when your guard is down and your heart is tired and you finally whisper, "Lord, I need you." And He answers, "I'm already here." There's a story in Scripture that captures this gentle truth in a way that feels made for nights like this. It's the story of the woman who touched the hem of Jesus' robe. She didn't have a loud prayer. She didn't have a perfect plan. She didn't have strength left. She had spent everything, emotionally, physically, financially. And she came to Jesus, not with confidence, but with desperation. She didn't even touch His hand. She touched the edge of His robe, the smallest contact, the quietest reach, the tiniest act of hope. And Jesus stopped. In a crowd of people, in the noise of the moment, He stopped for the one who barely had the strength to reach out. "Who touched me?" He asked, not because He didn't know, but because He wanted her to know that she wasn't invisible. She wasn't forgotten. She wasn't lost in the crowd. And you aren't either. Even if your prayers feel small, even if your faith feels thin, even if all you can do tonight is whisper His name with trembling breath, He stops for you. He sees you. He calls you, daughter, son, beloved, and He meets you right where your strength runs out. There's a moment in American Christian history that echoes this same truth in a way that feels almost like a mirror. It's the story of Dwight L. Moody, one of the most influential evangelists in American history. People remember the crowds, the revivals, the sermons that shook cities, but what they forget is the night he reached the end of himself. Moody was exhausted, burned out, carrying the weight of ministry, the weight of expectations, the weight of people's needs that never seemed to stop. He once wrote that he felt empty, as if he had nothing left to give. He prayed, but the prayers felt dry. He preached, but the words felt hollow. He served, but his heart felt numb. And then, in the middle of that emptiness, God met him. Not in a revival, not in a sermon, not in a moment of strength, but in a quiet, private encounter. On a street in New York City, Moody said it felt like waves of love washing over him, filling the places inside him that had been drained dry. He said he had to ask God to stop, because the love was too overwhelming. And from that moment on, his ministry changed, not because he became stronger, but because he became surrendered, not because he had more energy, but because he had more God. His weakness became the doorway for God's power. Just like the woman with the issue of blood, just like Elijah under the broom tree, just like Fanny Crosby in her darkness, just like Harriet Beecher Stowe in her grief, just like Phillips Brooks in his exhaustion, and just like you, in this quiet moment tonight. Maybe you feel empty. Maybe you feel drained. Maybe you feel like you've been giving and giving until there's nothing left inside you. But emptiness is not a failure. It's an invitation for God to fill you with what you cannot create on your own. Strength you didn't earn. Peace you didn't manufacture. Hope you didn't force. Love you didn't have to deserve. God is not asking you to overflow tonight. He's asking you to receive, to let Him pour into the places you've been trying to fill yourself, to let Him breathe into the corners of your heart that feel dim and tired, to let Him remind you that you don't have to carry everything. You don't have to fix everything. You don't have to be everything. You just have to be His. So breathe. Let the night be slow. Let your heart soften. Let God come close. In the places you've been holding tight, you are not running out. You are being refilled. You are not collapsing. You are being carried. You are not forgotten. You are deeply, deeply known. And the God who stopped for one woman in a crowd, who met Moody on a quiet street, who held Elijah in the wilderness, is holding you tonight with the same tenderness, the same attention, the same love. Stay with me. The night is deep, but you are not alone in it. There is a stillness here, a softness, a quiet space where your heart can finally breathe, without fear of being judged, or misunderstood, or rushed. Sometimes the deepest healing doesn't happen in bright moments of victory, but in the slow, hidden places where God meets you gently and reminds you that you are His. And tonight, I want to take you into another truth, one that has carried believers through centuries of storms, losses, questions, and long nights like this one. God does not just rescue you, He restores you, He rebuilds you, He renews you in ways you cannot yet see. Think about Peter, the disciple who walked on water, the one who declared Jesus as the Messiah, the one who promised He would never leave him. And then, in the cold darkness of a courtyard, he denied Jesus 3 times, not because he didn't love him, but because fear overwhelmed him, because his humanity cracked under pressure, because he was tired, confused, and afraid. And when the rooster crowed, Peter broke. He wept. He ran. He hid. But Jesus didn't leave him in that shame. After the resurrection, Jesus found Peter by the sea, the same sea where their story began. And instead of condemning him, Jesus cooked him breakfast, fish on a fire, warmth in the morning air, a quiet invitation, come sit with me. And then the question, not to shame him, but to restore him. Do you love me? 3 times, one for each denial, not to reopen the wound, but to heal it. Peter wasn't just forgiven, he was restored, rebuilt, recommissioned, trusted again. And maybe that's what God is doing in you, not just lifting you out of the storm, but rebuilding the parts of you that were worn down by it. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this so beautifully. It's the story of Thomas Dorsey, the father of modern gospel music. People know his songs, especially Precious Lord, Take My Hand, a hymn that has comforted millions, sung in churches, sung in civil rights marches, sung in hospital rooms and quiet bedrooms, on nights just like this. But what many don't know is where that song came from. Thomas Dorsey wrote it after losing his wife in childbirth, and then losing his newborn son. Shortly after, he said the grief was so heavy, he felt like he couldn't breathe. He stopped writing, stopped singing, stopped believing he had anything left to offer. But one night, in the middle of that unbearable sorrow, he sat at a piano. His hands trembled, his heart ached, and he whispered a prayer that was more like a cry. Lord, take my hand. And the melody came, soft, slow, like a hand reaching into the darkness. Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on. Let me stand, a song born from brokenness, a song that became a lifeline for countless others, walking through their own nights of grief. God didn't just comfort Thomas Dorsey, He restored him. He rebuilt him. He turned his deepest pain into a river of healing that still flows today, and maybe in ways you cannot yet see. God is doing the same in you. Maybe the parts of you that feel shattered are the very parts God is preparing to strengthen. Maybe the places where you feel empty are the places God is about to fill. Maybe the wounds you hide are the wounds God will one day use to comfort someone else who feels exactly like you do tonight. You are not too broken for God. You are not too tired. You are not too late. You are not too far gone. You are in the middle of being restored. Gently, patiently, tenderly, by a God who knows your story from beginning to end and has never once let go of you. So breathe. Let the night be soft. Let your heart rest. Let God hold the pieces you've been trying to hold alone. You are being rebuilt into something stronger, softer, deeper, and more beautiful than you can imagine. Stay here with me. The night is long, but there is a softness in it, a kind of holy quiet that only appears when the world finally stops demanding things from you. This is the hour when your heart tells the truth, when the things you've been carrying all day rise to the surface, when the questions you've been avoiding whisper a little louder. And this is also the hour when God often speaks the clearest, not with thunder, not with lightning, but with a gentle presence that settles over you like a warm blanket. Tonight I want to take you deeper into a truth that many believers forget. A truth that can change the way you walk through every valley, every storm, every long night of the soul. God is not just beside you, He is within you, and His strength becomes your strength when yours runs out. Think about Paul, the apostle who traveled the world, preached to crowds, wrote letters that shaped Christianity. But Paul also carried something heavy, a weakness, a wound, a burden he called, a thorn in the flesh. He prayed for God to remove it, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And God didn't remove it. Instead, He said something that has comforted millions of weary hearts. My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness, not in strength. not in perfection, not in performance, in weakness, in the places where you feel small, in the moments when you feel overwhelmed, in the nights when you feel like you have nothing left to give. God's power doesn't wait for you to be strong. It fills the places where you are not. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a breathtaking way. It's the story of Corrie ten Boom, a woman whose life became a testimony of God's strength in human weakness. Though Dutch by birth, her influence shaped American Christian faith for decades. Her books, her speeches, her ministry, they touched millions across the United States and helped believers understand what it means to trust God in the darkest places. Corrie and her family hid Jews during World War II. They risked everything because they believed God called them to love boldly. But they were discovered, arrested, sent to concentration camps. Corrie watched her sister Betsy grow weaker every day. She watched suffering that no human heart should ever have to witness. She felt fear, anger, confusion, and moments of deep despair. But Betsy, frail, gentle, dying, kept whispering words that would echo through history. There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. And Corrie carried those words out of the camp, across the ocean, into churches and auditoriums across America, where she told people that God's strength is not a theory. It is a lifeline. She once said, "I have learned that the weaker we are, the stronger God becomes." Her weakness didn't disqualify her. It became the very place where God's power shone the brightest. And maybe that's what God is doing in you. Not asking you to be strong, but asking you to let Him be strong for you. Maybe the places where you feel the most fragile are the places where God is preparing to show His glory. Maybe the cracks in your heart are where His light is going to shine through. Maybe the weakness you're ashamed of is the very thing God will use to touch someone else's life one day. You don't have to hide your weakness from God. You don't have to pretend you're okay. You don't have to carry everything alone. You can rest. You can breathe. You can let go. Because God is not disappointed in your weakness. He is drawn to it. He meets you there. He fills you there. He strengthens you there. And His strength, quiet, steady, unshakable, is holding you tonight, even if you don't feel it yet. So let the night be gentle. Let your heart soften. Let God's presence settle over you, like a warm hand on your back. You are not failing. You are not falling apart. You are not too weak. You are exactly where God can reach you. exactly where His grace can carry you, exactly where His strength becomes your own. Stay with me in this quiet moment. The night has a way of slowing everything down. Your thoughts, your heartbeat, your defenses. And in this slow, gentle space, God can reach places in you that you've kept hidden for a long time. Tonight, I want to walk with you into a truth that many people know in their minds, but struggle to believe in their hearts. You are not walking toward God. God is walking toward you every single day, every single night, especially when you feel far away. Think about the father in the story of the prodigal son. The son had run. He had failed. He had wasted everything. He had made choices he regretted. He had reached the lowest point of his life. And when he finally decided to go home, he rehearsed a speech in his mind, a speech full of shame, full of guilt, full of, "I'm not worthy." But before he could say a single word, before he could explain himself, before he could apologize, the father ran to him. Ran, not walked, not waited, not hesitated. He ran. He embraced him. He covered him. He restored him. The son thought he was returning to judgment, but he returned to love. And maybe that's where you are tonight. Maybe you feel like you've wandered too far. Maybe you feel like you've disappointed God. Maybe you feel like you've lost your way. But God is not waiting for you to fix yourself. He is not waiting for you to be perfect. He is not waiting for you to get it together. He is already running toward you. Right now, in this moment, in this quiet room, there's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a powerful, unforgettable way. It's the story of Billy Graham, one of the most influential evangelists in history. Millions heard him preach. Millions came to Christ through his ministry. But what many people forget is that Billy Graham's journey began not with confidence, not with clarity, but with doubt. As a young man, he wrestled deeply with questions about faith. He wondered if God could really use him. He wondered if he was worthy. He wondered if he was enough. At one point, he walked alone into the woods with his Bible in his hands and prayed a simple, trembling prayer. God, I don't understand everything, but I will trust you. I will give you my life. And God met him there, not with fireworks, not with a booming voice, but with a quiet assurance that changed the direction of his entire life. Billy Graham later said that the moment he surrendered was the moment God began to run toward him with purpose, with calling, with a future he never could have imagined. And maybe that's what God is doing in you tonight. Not asking you to understand everything. Not asking you to have perfect faith. Not asking you to be fearless. Just asking you to open your heart. Even a little. Just enough for Him to step in. Because God does not wait for you at the finish line. He meets you on the road. He meets you in the middle. He meets you in the mess. He meets you in the questions. He meets you in the nights when you feel lost. And He runs toward you with the same love that ran toward the prodigal son. Maybe you've been carrying guilt. Maybe you've been carrying regret. Maybe you've been carrying a weight you've never told anyone about. But God is not pushing you away. He is pulling you close. He is not disappointed in you. He is delighted to see you turning toward Him. He is not counting your failures. He is counting the steps you're taking toward home. And even if those steps are small, even if they're slow, even if they're shaky, He celebrates them. Because every step toward God is met with a God who is already running toward you. So breathe. Let the night be gentle. Let your heart soften. Let the love of God wrap around you like a warm blanket. You are not too far gone. You are not too broken. You are not too late. You are seen. You are wanted. You are welcomed home. And the God who ran toward the prodigal son, who met Billy Graham in the woods, who meets countless believers in their darkest nights, is running toward you tonight with open arms and a heart full of love. Stay here with me. The night is quiet. Your breathing is slower now, and something inside you, something small, something fragile, something hopeful, is beginning to wake up again. Not loudly, not suddenly, just a soft stirring, like the first hint of dawn, far beyond the horizon. Tonight I want to walk with you into a truth that is easy to forget. When life feels heavy, when your heart feels tired, when the world feels too loud, God is not only writing your story, He is rewriting the parts you thought were ruined. He is redeeming what you thought was lost. He is restoring what you thought was over. Think about Joseph, the boy with dreams, the boy with favor, the boy with a future, and then betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, thrown into prison, forgotten by people he helped. Years of silence, years of waiting, years of wondering if God still remembered him. But God was not absent. God was not late. God was not ignoring him. God was preparing him, shaping him, positioning him, And when the time was right, Joseph went from prison to palace in a single day, not because he fought his way out, not because he forced his destiny, but because God had been working in the shadows the entire time. And maybe that's what God is doing in your life, working in the shadows, preparing something you cannot yet see, redeeming things you thought were beyond repair. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth with stunning clarity. It's the story of John Newton, the man who wrote Amazing Grace, a hymn sung across the world, a hymn that has comforted millions, a hymn that has become a symbol of redemption. But John Newton's story did not begin with grace. It began with brokenness, with rebellion, with running from God, with choices that harmed others and scarred his own soul. He became involved in the slave trade, a dark, painful chapter he would later grieve for the rest of his life. But in the middle of a violent storm at sea, when he thought he was going to die, he cried out to God, not with eloquence, not with confidence, just with desperation. And God met him, right there, in the storm, in the mess, in the consequences of his own choices. Newton later said, "I once was lost, but now I'm found." He didn't pretend his past didn't exist. He didn't erase the pain he caused, but he let God rewrite his story. He let grace transform him. He let redemption become the loudest chapter of his life. He spent the rest of his years fighting against the very evil he once participated in. He became a voice for justice, a mentor to abolitionists, a living testimony that no one is too far gone for God to redeem. And maybe that's what God is whispering to you tonight, that your story is not ruined, that your past does not disqualify you, that your mistakes do not define you, that your failures are not final. God is not done, not with your heart, not with your future, not with your story. He is the God who brings beauty from ashes, the God who turns mourning into dancing, the God who takes what was meant for harm and transforms it into something that carries healing. Maybe you've been carrying regret. Maybe you've been replaying old moments you wish you could change. Maybe you've been believing the lie that you've messed up too much for God to use you. But listen, God specializes in redemption. He takes the broken pieces and builds something stronger. He takes the painful chapters and turns them into testimonies. He takes the parts of your story you're ashamed of and transforms them into places where His grace shines brightest. You are not beyond redemption. You are not beyond healing. You are not beyond restoration. You are in the hands of the same God who restored Joseph, who transformed John Newton, who rewrote stories that looked hopeless from the outside. So breathe. Let the night hold you. Let grace wash over you like a gentle tide. Your story is not over. Your story is not ruined. Your story is being rewritten by the one who loves you more deeply than you understand. Stay here with me. The night is deep, but something in you is beginning to breathe again. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet loosening, a soft unwinding, like your soul finally realizing it doesn't have to fight so hard to survive. Tonight, I want to take you into a truth that sits at the very center of the Christian story. A truth that has carried believers through wars, through heartbreak, through loneliness, through seasons of silence and seasons of waiting. God is not only with you in the valley, He walks you out of it, step by step, day by day, night by night. Think about the Israelites. They wandered in the wilderness for 40 years, not because God abandoned them, but because God was teaching them how to walk with Him. A pillar of cloud by day, a pillar of fire by night, daily manna, daily guidance, daily presence. They didn't always understand the journey. They didn't always feel strong. They didn't always trust perfectly. But God never left them. Not once. Not for a moment. And when the time was right, He led them into the promised land. Not because they were flawless, but because He was faithful. And maybe that's what God is doing in your life. Leading you, guiding you, carrying you through a season that feels like wandering, but is actually preparation. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth with stunning clarity. It's the story of Sojourner Truth, a woman born into slavery, a woman who endured suffering most of us cannot imagine, a woman who walked through valleys that seemed impossible to escape. But she didn't walk alone. She once said, "God is the only one I can depend on, and God has never failed me." When she escaped slavery, she didn't know where she was going. She didn't have a map. She didn't have a plan. She didn't have safety guaranteed. But she prayed. She listened. She followed the quiet voice of God, one step at a time. And God led her, not just out of bondage, but into a calling that would shake the conscience of a nation. She became a preacher, a speaker, a voice for justice, a woman whose courage was rooted not in her own strength, but in her unshakable belief that God walks with the oppressed, the weary, the forgotten, the broken-hearted. She once said, "I feel safe in the hands of God." And maybe that's what God wants you to feel tonight. Safe, held, guided, not because you know the whole path, not because you feel strong, not because you have everything figured out, but because God is walking with you, step by step, through the valley you're in. Maybe you've been asking, when will this season end? When will things get better? When will I feel like myself again? And God is whispering, I'm leading you. You're not stuck. You're not lost. You're not alone. Sometimes God parts the sea. Sometimes He moves the mountain. Sometimes He calms the storm. But sometimes He simply takes your hand and walks you through the darkness, one quiet step at a time. And those steps matter. Even the small ones, even the shaky ones, even the ones that feel like you're barely moving, because movement in the valley is still movement, and God honors every step you take toward healing, toward hope, toward Him. There's something else Sojourner Truth said that feels like it was written for nights exactly like this. I will not look back. I am going forward, and I shall not be moved, not because she was fearless, but because she knew God was walking ahead of her, and God is walking ahead of you too, preparing the next chapter, opening doors you cannot see yet, clearing paths you don't know exist, making a way where there seems to be no way. So breathe. Let the night be gentle. Let your heart rest in the truth that you are being led by a God who never loses His way. You are not wandering. You are being guided. You are not forgotten. You are being carried. You are not stuck. You are on a journey that God Himself is directing. And when the time is right, you will step into a new season with strength you didn't know you had, and faith that was forged in nights just like this one. Stay here with me. The night is quiet. Your breathing is softer, and something inside you, something tender, something long buried, something you thought might never wake again, is beginning to rise. Not loudly, not suddenly, just a gentle lifting, like a small light flickering back to life after a long season of darkness. Tonight I want to walk with you into a truth that is both simple and profound, a truth that has carried believers through heartbreak, through uncertainty, through seasons of waiting and seasons of wandering. God is not only healing your past, He is preparing your future, a future that is good, purposeful, and filled with His presence. Think about Jeremiah 29 verse 11, a verse many people quote, but few understand in its full depth. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. These words were spoken, not to people who were thriving, but to people in exile, people who felt forgotten, people who wondered if God still saw them, people who thought their best days were behind them. And God said, I still have plans for you, not vague plans, not backup plans, not maybe if you behave plans, real plans, good plans, plans shaped by His love and guided by His wisdom. And maybe that's what God is whispering to you tonight, that your story is not drifting, your life is not random, your future is not empty. God is preparing something for you, even in the moments when you feel stuck. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a beautiful, unexpected way. It's the story of Elizabeth Elliot, a woman whose life became a testimony of God's ability to bring purpose out of unimaginable pain. Her husband, Jim Elliot, was one of 5 missionaries killed while trying to share the gospel with the Guarani people of Ecuador. The world saw tragedy, a life cut short, a future destroyed. But Elizabeth Elliot did not let the story end there. In a move that shocked the world, she returned to the very people who had killed her husband, not with anger, not with revenge, but with forgiveness, with compassion, with the message of Christ. And through her courage, an entire community came to know the love of God. Later in life, she wrote words that feel like they were crafted for nights exactly like this. Of one thing I am perfectly sure, God's story never ends with ashes. Her life did not go the way she planned. Her dreams did not unfold the way she imagined. But God wrote a story more powerful, more redemptive, more beautiful than anything she could have created on her own. And maybe, in ways you cannot yet see, God is doing the same in your life. Maybe the closed doors are not punishments, but protections. Maybe the delays are not denials, but preparations. Maybe the detours are not failures, but pathways to something deeper, something richer, something more aligned. with who God is shaping you to become. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not disqualified. You are being prepared. Quietly, patiently, tenderly. God is shaping your character, strengthening your spirit, deepening your compassion, sharpening your purpose. And when the time is right, He will open doors that no one can shut. He will bring people into your life who speak life into your calling. He will lead you into places you once thought were out of reach. He will turn the pages of your story with a gentleness that makes you realize He was holding the pen all along. So breathe. Let the night be soft. Let your heart rest in the truth that God is not only healing you, He is preparing you. Your future is not empty. Your future is not lost. Your future is held in the hands of a God who writes stories that always lead to hope. Stay here with me. The night is long, but it's also gentle in a way the daytime never is. There's a softness in this hour, a quiet honesty, a space where your heart can finally speak without interruption, without pressure, without fear. And in this quiet, I want to walk with you into a truth that many people forget. When life feels heavy and the future feels uncertain, God is not only preparing a future for you, He is preparing you for that future. Slowly, tenderly, intentionally, with a wisdom deeper than your understanding, and a love stronger than your fear. Think about David, anointed as king when he was young, chosen, called, set apart. But he didn't step into the throne immediately. He stepped into years of waiting, years of running, years of hiding in caves, years of being misunderstood, betrayed, pursued, and pushed to the edge of despair. He wrote psalms in the wilderness. He cried out to God in the dark. He questioned. He wrestled. He wondered if the promise had been a mistake. But God wasn't delaying him. God was shaping him, teaching him to trust, teaching him to lead, teaching him to rely not on his own strength, but on the presence of God. And when the time was right, David stepped into the calling that had been waiting for him all along. Not because he was perfect, but because he was prepared. And maybe that's what God is doing in you. Not withholding your future, but preparing your heart so you can carry it well. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a powerful, unforgettable way. It's the story of A.W. Tozer, one of the most influential Christian writers of the 20th century. People know him for his books, the pursuit of God, the knowledge of the holy, and so many others that shape the spiritual lives of millions. But what many forget is that Tozer never went to seminary. He never had formal training. He grew up poor. He worked ordinary jobs. He lived a quiet, hidden life. Long before anyone knew his name, one day, as a teenager, he heard a street preacher say, "If you don't know how to be saved, just call on God." And Tozer went home, climbed into the attic, knelt on the wooden floor, and prayed a simple prayer. "Lord, save me." That moment changed everything. But the calling didn't come quickly. The influence didn't come instantly. The books didn't come for decades. God spent years shaping him in obscurity, teaching him to pray, teaching him to listen, teaching him to hunger for God more than anything else. And when the time was right, God brought his voice into the world with a depth and power that could only come from a life formed in the quiet places. Tozer once wrote, "It is doubtful whether God can bless a man greatly until he has hurt him deeply, not because God delights in pain, but because God uses the hard seasons to carve out space in us for his presence, his wisdom, his strength." And maybe that's what God is doing in you, carving out space, deepening your roots, strengthening your foundation, preparing you for something you cannot yet imagine. Maybe the waiting isn't wasted. Maybe the silence isn't empty. Maybe the slow seasons are the seasons where God is doing his most important work in you. You are not behind. You are not forgotten. You are not being overlooked. You are being prepared, quietly, patiently, lovingly. And when the time is right, God will open doors that no one can shut. He will bring opportunities that fit you perfectly. He will lead you into a future that feels like it was made just for you, because it was. There's something else Tozer said that feels like a whisper for your heart tonight. God never hurries. There are no deadlines against which he must work. Only to know this is to quiet our spirits and relax our nerves. So breathe. Let your spirit quiet. Let your nerves relax. Let the night be gentle. You don't have to rush your healing. You don't have to rush your growth. You don't have to rush your future. God is already in your tomorrow. He is already preparing the way. He is already shaping the story. And he is shaping you to walk into it with strength, with peace, with purpose, and with a heart that knows you were never alone in the waiting. stay with me. The night is still, your breathing is steady, and something inside you, something sacred, something long protected, something you may have been afraid to touch, is beginning to open, not all at once, not dramatically, just a gentle unfolding, like a flower that only blooms in the dark, because the darkness feels safer than the daylight ever did. Tonight I want to walk with you into a truth that is both tender and powerful, a truth that has carried believers through grief, through loneliness, through seasons of silence and seasons of deep longing. God is not only preparing you for the future, He is staying with you in the present, fully, faithfully, lovingly, even when you don't feel Him, even when you don't hear Him, even when you don't understand Him. Think about the disciples on the road to Emmaus. They were heartbroken, confused, disappointed. They thought the story was over. They thought Jesus was gone. They thought hope had died. And as they walked, Jesus Himself came near. He walked beside them, listened to them, talked with them, comforted them, but they didn't recognize Him. Not at first, not until later, and yet their lack of recognition did not stop His presence. Their confusion did not push Him away. Their sadness did not make Him distant. He was with them, even when they couldn't see Him. And maybe that's where you are tonight, walking through a season where God feels quiet, where prayers feel unanswered, where the road feels long, and your heart feels tired, but your feelings are not the measure of His presence. Your emotions are not the proof of His nearness. Your confusion is not a sign of His absence. He is walking with you, even now, even here, even in this quiet room, with your tired heart and your unspoken questions. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a way that feels almost like a whisper from God. It's the story of Helen Keller, a woman who lived in darkness and silence from the time she was a toddler. A woman who could not see, could not hear, could not speak, and yet her life became a testimony of God's presence in places most people would consider hopeless. Helen Keller once wrote, "I know God is with me because I feel His love in the things I cannot see." She learned to communicate. She learned to read. She learned to speak. She learned to understand the world, not through sight or sound, but through touch, through trust, through a deep inner awareness that God was guiding her. Even in the silence, she became a writer, a speaker, a voice of courage for millions. And she often said that her disabilities did not separate her from God. They made her more aware of His nearness. Her life became a reminder that God's presence is not limited by our senses, not limited by our understanding, not limited by our circumstances. He is present in the silence, in the darkness, in the waiting, in the places where you feel alone, and maybe in ways you cannot yet see. He is present with you tonight in the same way. Maybe the quiet you're experiencing is not abandonment, but invitation. Maybe the stillness is not emptiness, but space for God to speak in a deeper way. Maybe the silence is not God withholding Himself, but God drawing you closer than you've ever been. You don't have to feel Him to be held by Him. You don't have to hear Him to be guided by Him. You don't have to understand Him to be loved by Him. He is here in this moment, in this breath, in this night, and He is not going anywhere. So let your shoulders relax. Let your heart soften. Let the quiet be gentle. You are not alone. You are not abandoned. You are not unseen. You are accompanied by the God who walks beside you, even when you don't recognize Him. And one day, just like the disciples on the road, just like Helen Keller in her silence, you will look back and realize He was with you every step of the way. Stay here a little longer. The night is deep, but it's not heavy. It's gentle, soft, like a warm hand resting quietly on your back, reminding you that you don't have to rush, don't have to perform, don't have to pretend. This moment is enough. You are enough. And God is here. Not far away. Not distant. Not waiting for you to get it together, but present in the quiet, in the stillness, in the breath you're taking right now. Tonight, I want to walk with you into a truth that many people forget. When life feels overwhelming and the future feels uncertain, God is not only with you in the present, He is strengthening you for what's ahead, not by pushing you, but by staying close, not by demanding more, but by giving more of Himself. Think about Isaiah 40 verse 31, a verse whispered in hospital rooms, quoted in dark nights, held on to by weary hearts. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings like eagles. They shall run and not grow weary. They shall walk and not faint. Notice the order. Not flying first. Not running first. Walking. Just walking. One step. Then another. Then another. Strength doesn't always come as a sudden surge. Sometimes it comes as a quiet endurance, a steady breath, a soft resilience that grows in the dark, long before it shines in the light. And maybe that's what God is doing in you, renewing you slowly, strengthening you quietly, preparing you gently. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a way that feels almost like a parable. It's the story of Harriet Tubman, a woman whose courage shaped the soul of a nation, a woman who led enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. A woman who walked through forests, swamps, rivers, and darkness with nothing but faith and the quiet voice of God guiding her. Harriet Tubman could not read or write. She had no maps, no formal training, no earthly protection. But she had God, and she trusted Him with a depth that still echoes through history. She once said, "I always told God, I'm going to hold steady on you, and you've got to see me through." And He did, again and again, night after night. Journey after journey. She led more than 70 people to freedom and never lost a single one. Not because she was fearless, but because she was faithful. Not because she was strong, but because she was strengthened. Not because she knew the way, but because she trusted the one who did. Her life became a living testimony that God strengthens the weary, guides the lost, and empowers the humble. And maybe, in ways you cannot yet see, God is strengthening you in the same quiet, steady way. Maybe the nights that feel long are the nights where your endurance is growing. Maybe the prayers that feel unanswered are the prayers shaping your faith. Maybe the silence that feels heavy is the silence where God is teaching you to hear His whisper. Strength doesn't always look like power. Sometimes it looks like gentleness. Sometimes it looks like patience. Sometimes it looks like simply not giving up. And God sees every small act of endurance, every quiet prayer, every tear you wipe alone, every moment you choose to keep going, even when you feel like stopping. He sees it. He honors it. He strengthens you through it. There's another moment in Scripture that captures this truth beautifully. When Jesus was in Gethsemane, He was overwhelmed. He was sorrowful. He was deeply distressed. He prayed, "Father, if it is possible, Let this cup pass from me. And then, in the middle of his anguish, Scripture says something remarkable. An angel from heaven appeared to him and strengthened him. Even Jesus was strengthened in his weakness, not shamed, not scolded, strengthened. And if Jesus himself was met with strength in his darkest hour, how much more will God meet you in yours? So breathe. Let the night be soft. Let your heart rest. You don't have to be strong on your own. You don't have to carry everything alone. You don't have to pretend you're okay when you're not. God is strengthening you in ways you cannot yet see, quietly, tenderly, faithfully. And when the time comes, you will rise, not because you forced yourself to, but because God lifted you. You will walk, you will run, you will soar, and you will look back on nights like this and realize they were not wasted. They were the nights God was rebuilding you from the inside out. Stay here with me. The night is deep, but it's beginning to feel different now. Not heavy, not suffocating, but spacious. Like there's finally room for your heart to stretch, to breathe, to feel something other than exhaustion. You've walked through so many chapters with me tonight. Chapters of healing, of waiting, of restoration, of God's nearness in the quiet places. And now, I want to walk with you into a truth that is both fierce and tender. A truth that has carried believers through battles, through heartbreak, through seasons of uncertainty and seasons of calling. God is not only strengthening you, He is anointing you, setting you apart, preparing you for a purpose that carries His fingerprints. Think about Esther, a young woman who never asked to be queen, never asked to be chosen, never asked to carry the weight of a nation. She was taken from her home, placed in a palace she didn't choose, surrounded by politics she didn't understand. But God was already there, positioning her, preparing her, placing her exactly where she needed to be. For a moment she didn't yet know was coming, and when that moment arrived, when her people were in danger, when the future looked dark, when fear whispered that she was too small, God whispered something louder. You were born for such a time as this, not because she was fearless, not because she was perfect, but because she was willing, and maybe, in ways you cannot yet see, God is whispering the same truth over your life. You were born for this moment, not by accident, not by coincidence, not by random chance. You were placed here with purpose, with intention, with a calling that fits your heart, even if it scares you. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth with breathtaking clarity. It's the story of Martin Luther King Jr., a man whose voice became a beacon of hope in one of the darkest chapters of American history. People remember the speeches, the marches, the crowds, the courage. But what many forget is the night he almost gave up. It was late. He was exhausted. He was receiving threats. He felt the weight of an entire movement pressing down on his shoulders, and he prayed, not a polished prayer, not a public prayer, a raw, trembling midnight prayer at his kitchen table. Lord, I am afraid. I have nothing left. I cannot do this alone. And in that quiet moment, he later said he felt God speak to him, not audibly, but unmistakably. Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for justice. I will be with you. That night became a turning point, not because the threats stopped, not because the road became easy, but because he knew he wasn't walking it alone. He once said, "Faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase." And maybe that's what God is asking of you. Not to see everything, not to understand everything, not to feel ready, just to take the next step, the small step, the quiet step, the step that says, God, I trust you, because calling rarely begins with clarity. It begins with surrender, with willingness, with a heart that says, here I am, Lord, use me. And God takes that willingness and turns it into something beautiful, something powerful, something eternal. Maybe your calling won't look dramatic. Maybe it won't look public. Maybe it won't look like what others expect. But it will be holy, because God Himself is shaping it. Maybe your calling is to comfort someone with the comfort you've received. Maybe your calling is to speak hope into someone else's darkness. Maybe your calling is to create, to write, to teach, to serve, to love, to build, to heal, to lead quietly in places no one else sees. Maybe your calling is unfolding right now in the very season you thought was breaking you, because God often anoints people in the hidden places long before He reveals them in the public ones. David was anointed in a field. Esther was anointed in a palace she didn't choose. Martin Luther King Jr. was anointed at a kitchen table in the middle of the night, and you are being anointed in this quiet room, in this gentle night, in this moment where your heart is finally still enough to hear God whisper, "You are mine. I am with you, and I am preparing you for something beautiful." So breathe. Let the night be soft. Let your heart rest in the truth that God is not only healing you, not only strengthening you, but calling you. You are being shaped for a purpose that carries the weight of eternity and the tenderness of God's love. Stay here with me. The night has grown quiet, and something in you, something deep, something sacred, something you may not have felt in a long time, is beginning to steady. Not because everything is fixed, not because every question is answered, not because the road ahead is suddenly clear, but because your heart is finally remembering that you are not walking this road alone. Tonight I want to walk with you into a truth that is both comforting and empowering, a truth that has carried believers through seasons of fear, seasons of calling, seasons of uncertainty, and seasons of stepping into something new. God is not only calling you, He is equipping you quietly, faithfully, perfectly, for every step you will take next. Think about Moses, a man who didn't feel qualified, didn't feel eloquent, didn't feel strong, didn't feel ready. When God called him, Moses said, "Who am I?" And God answered, "I will be with you." Not, "You are enough." Not, "You are strong." Not, "You are capable." But, "I will be with you." Because God's presence is the greatest qualification you will ever have. And maybe that's what God is whispering to you tonight, that you don't have to be perfect to be used by Him. You don't have to be fearless to walk into your calling. You don't have to be confident to take the next step. You just have to be willing, and God will equip you with everything you need. There's a story from American Christian history that mirrors this truth in a powerful, unforgettable way. It's the story of Amy Carmichael, an Irish-born missionary whose writings and influence shaped American Christian spirituality for generations. She didn't feel extraordinary. She didn't feel strong. She didn't feel like a hero, but she felt called, and she followed that call all the way to India, where she rescued children from exploitation and danger, built homes of safety, and created a community that still exists today. she once wrote. All that is in me is yours, Lord. Use me as you will. And God did. Not because she was fearless, but because she was surrendered. Her journals reveal that she often felt weak, often felt overwhelmed, often felt unqualified. But she also wrote this: it is a precious thing when the Lord takes our weakness and makes it His strength, and maybe, in ways you cannot yet see, God is doing the same in you. Maybe the parts of you that feel small are the parts God will use most powerfully. Maybe the places where you feel inadequate are the places where His strength will shine the brightest. Maybe the quiet desires in your heart are whispers of a calling God planted long ago. You don't have to force it. You don't have to chase it. You don't have to make it happen. God equips the called. He doesn't call the equipped. And He equips you in ways you may not even recognize yet. He equips you through the pain you survived. He equips you through the compassion you learned. He equips you through the nights you cried. He equips you through the storms you endured. He equips you through the prayers you whispered when no one else was listening. Every chapter of your life has been shaping you for the next one. Every season has been preparing you for what's coming. Every moment has been equipping you with strength, with empathy, with resilience, with wisdom, with a depth of faith that only grows in the dark. You are not empty. You are not unprepared. You are not lacking. You are being equipped by the God who knows your future and knows exactly what you will need when you step into it. So breathe. Let the night be gentle. Let your heart rest in the truth that you are not stepping into the unknown alone. God is going with you. God is going before you. God is preparing the way and preparing you at the same time. And when the moment comes to step forward, you will not step forward in fear. You will step forward in faith, carried by a God who has been equipping you all along. Stay with me for this final moment. The night has carried you far, through valleys, through memories, through quiet places inside your heart that you rarely let anyone see. And now, as we reach the end of this long, gentle journey, I want to bring you into a truth that holds all the others together. A truth that is steady, unchanging, and strong enough to carry you into every tomorrow. God is not finished with you. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Not ever. You have walked through chapters of healing, chapters of waiting, chapters of restoration, chapters of calling, chapters of strength, chapters of surrender, and every step, every breath, every tear, every whispered prayer has been held by the God who has never once let go of your story. Think about Revelation 21 verse 5, a verse that feels like a sunrise. After a long night, behold, I am making all things new. Not some things, not the easy things, not the things you understand. All things, your past, your wounds, your fears, your hopes, your future, your heart, all things made new, made whole, made beautiful in the hands of the one who writes redemption into every chapter he touches, and maybe in ways you cannot yet see. He is already making something new in you. There's a story from American Christian history that captures this truth with a quiet, powerful simplicity. It's the story of Johnny Cash, a man whose voice shaped generations, whose music carried both sorrow and hope, whose life was marked by failure, redemption, and the relentless grace of God. Johnny Cash struggled deeply with addiction, with regret, with the weight of his own humanity. But he also encountered God in the middle of his brokenness. He once said, "You build on failure. You use it as a stepping stone. You don't let it have any power over you." His life became a testimony that God does not discard the broken. He rebuilds them. He restores them. He sings through them. And maybe, in ways you cannot yet imagine, God will sing through your life too. Because the story He is writing in you is not a story of defeat. It is a story of becoming. Becoming softer. Becoming stronger. Becoming wiser. Becoming more whole. Becoming more like the one who has walked with you through every night. This is not the end of your story. This is the turning of a page, a gentle shift, a quiet beginning. You have been held. You have been healed. You have been strengthened. You have been called. You have been equipped. And now, you are being sent, not into pressure, not into perfection, not into performance, but into a life where God walks with you in every step, every breath, every sunrise, every unknown. So let this final truth settle deep. You are not alone. You have never been alone. And you will never be alone. God goes before you. God walks beside you. God carries you when you cannot walk. God surrounds you with mercy. that does not run out, and love that does not break. So breathe. Let the night be gentle one last time. Let your heart rest in the truth that the God who brought you this far will carry you farther still. This is the end of part 17, but it is not the end of you. It is the beginning of a new chapter. God has already prepared, and you, with your tender heart, your quiet strength, your hard-won hope, are ready to walk into it.